Hi, welcome back, friends. I'm with my good friend Cindy today. Cindy is a lender, and she's going to give us first an intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself, but I want to get right into it and give our audience all of your tips and tricks that we were able to use this week. So
All
tell us a
right.
little bit about yourself, Cindy.
Thanks, Jessica. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Yes, I'm Cindy Haven with Golden Bay Mortgage. I actually focus on all of California, but right now I'm in the Northern California region, the Folsom area. A couple of things I mentioned to Jessica. I know people like stories, Jessica. So we recently had a family member that I had reached out to you about. My son and daughter-in-law, professionals looking to purchase a home. Went to look at the home in the Folsom area. Great location. Would have been a great home. Um, this home actually, and it was also listed in MLS that there was some TLC that was needed. And so when we got out there, we already did the numbers. One of the benefits of working with Jessica, if you don't know, and I've known her since 2010,
Yeah,
going back
we
a
do
few
go
years,
way back.
just a few years. She was one of the first my people that we met when our sons went to high school at Folsom High School. And so I didn't want to bypass my background in this business. I was working in a corporate job over at VSP in Rancho Cordova. Traveled there as a senior account manager for 8, 9 years almost. And we started putting together some programs, Jessica and I did, for the corporation, for the employees. And I thought at this point, we had been going through a lot of acquisitions, and I was ready to just make the change out of a corporate life to as more of a civilian business owner position kind of thing. And so back in 2018, joined AAG. They came here, American Advisors Group, did the reverse mortgage side of the business for almost 3 years. And then they sold their company in Folsom and centrally located back in Southern California. Then I was hired with the Small Business Administration, some of the people I worked with, because I was what you call, I joke about it, but coming out of corporate life, you're used to hitting targets in the President's Club. So that kind of followed along in this role with AAG. So hit a few of those and ended up with the Small Business Administration managing a team during COVID, as well as getting my lender's license back in, let's see, my NMLS back in 2018. Also, we owned business before, and also we've owned rentals. And I think that's an important piece to note because, Jessica, you own rental property as well. We started buying them. I guess our first properties go back to like 1991. That's going to age me, but if that gives someone just a general overview. So we've
Yeah.
owned the properties, been involved in this business for many, many years, got on the finance side. And this is the fun part, structuring deals, right? And talking about kind of what's going on in the market, which is what we talked about earlier today. I said, hey, did you know in Placer County, the average rent is $29.50 a month? Think about that. If you're paying close to $3,000, you could easily get into a property. We have strategies and solutions to help you do that and go through those doors and make it happen. And I think that's part of our discussion here, Jessica, don't you?
Well,
That,
yeah,
you know,
tell us about your family member and like how you plan to structure that deal on a house that was the payment was higher than they were comfortable with. How
yeah,
did you plan to structure that to make it palatable for them?
the main piece that I looked at in the structure was a 2-1 buy down and
Okay.
working with an agent that will request a 2-1 buy down. As Jessica knows, I've worked with other agents, and let's just be straightforward here. You have to be working with a professional, someone who knows the numbers, like Jessica, who looks out for the client's best interests and is not new to this business, quite honestly, someone who knows how to make the deal come together. I reached out to Jessica a couple of days before we were going to schedule to see the property because my first thought was, okay, this is a little uncomfort. It was like 749. They dropped the price 80,000. They said it needed some TLC. When we got out there after looking at the reports, it was generally over 100,000 in work. And so looking at that, it was a little bit more than they wanted to do because they're in the process of having a baby, company career changes and those types of things in the last 6 months. So they said, hey, we're going to wait and maybe look for something different. However, the way that I structured this deal was looking at a 2-1 buy down with Jessica, which meant that Jessica was going to request from the seller a certain amount so that the first year, so for example, the rates today, maybe they're at 6.34. We'll give an example. So we dropped that 2 points that first year to the
Mm-hmm.
4.34. And then it goes up, the next year, an extra point so that people would understand. And then by that time, you're hoping and thinking that there'll be administration changes. There may be changes with the Fed chair, which are going to happen the 15th of this month. But, we have to allow time for these things to go into effect. And so, Jessica, I think that's one big way is the 2-1 buy down. The other piece, too, is we look at some other options during inspection, too. And you might want to talk about that when the
Oh yeah.
inspections
Well, I
are.
mean, I call it putting the seller in a headlock. I think that it's really important to know once you're in contract, the worst they can say is no. And once most sellers don't do inspections, most agents don't know to request to have their seller. When you're representing a seller, I always make them do the inspections up front. That's just not, it's a non-negotiable. We
I
do
do
this up
too.
front.
I ask them to, even when it's a
Um,
for sale by owner.
yeah, yeah, and so for reasons that I don't think are important to get into, but if you have that up front, you know what your liabilities are. If you don't have that up front, I'm going to be able to put them in a better chokehold, and we're going to be able to request that. If they don't give it to us, they are by law, they have to give those same reports to the next buyer. And what buyer is going to take that on? No one is. You may as
Exactly.
well just work with the buyer that's you're already in a headlock with, because you can, if you unlock, you're going to go deal with that same thing with somebody else. So I think it's really important to request that 2% for the seller to pay for your buy down, ask the seller to pay for your closing costs, and then once you get into negotiation, as you will, and you start covering all of your inspections, come back and ask for whatever needs to be repaired.
I would agree because one of the things I was looking at when we went out there was the section one. They had
Mm-hmm.
already disclosed section one, but section one was only the start of it. In this particular scenario, that property, that particular home needed way more work than $6,800 in section one as we looked at it. And so, but not everybody knows what to look for. And that's
Mm-hmm.
another piece to this puzzle, too, for people to know that you want to work with a team, a lender and a realtor team that understands and has seen a lot of property, that's looked at a lot of inspections. Jessica reviews reports. I review the reports because we know at some point you're going to have an addendum,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a very high probability in a home like this that they would have some kind of an addendum that you would negotiate as a realtor on behalf of the client and
Mm-hmm.
send it through and say, hey, Cindy, you know what? They're going to get a credit for X amount. And so that money can be used for repairs and non-recurring closing costs to kind of
And I do
offset some
think
of that.
it's important to, I always have that on an addendum. Never would I ever use a request for repair. I made that rookie mistake many, many years ago. That
Yeah.
request for repair, your lender's going to see. If they see that you're asking for work to be done in a pest report, they're going to require that it's done prior to the close of escrow. And that's going to mess everything up. Because I like to use my own vendors. So I keep it all pretty clean on an addendum and we keep it clear with credits. Even if the work is going to be done right after the close of escrow, I have them credit Bob the builder or whoever we want to use for the work. The seller can credit that directly. And I get a lot of pushback on that, like, oh, I don't know if you're allowed to do that. You are. I do it all the time. You can use
Yeah.
whoever you want, and I can get them paid out from close of escrow from the title company direct to, Bob the builder is my example, but obviously it could be anybody. It could be your Uncle Tony. I don't care who it is. They just have to have a scope of work and an invoice, and then I can get them paid after close of escrow, and your work can be done that way. But I wouldn't dare muck it up with a request for repair. That's not a form I use. I think you're just opening
Exactly.
a can of worms.
Absolutely, especially with VAs.
Yeah. Oh,
We can't even get into the
yeah. Don't
VA
even like,
lending process. You can't do
no,
that. We both
no,
do with
don't
VAs.
even
You can't
think
do that.
about that. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So I
right.
think I can't emphasize enough the importance of using that 2-1 buy down to make
Yep.
sure that you have the ability to get the seller to pay that 2% buy down. If the buyer pays for it, it actually runs 2.25%. So the buyer's paying a higher rate to have that same buy down. You're better off having the seller pay it. The opportunity is all yours as a buyer right now. We're very much in a buyer's market. We have been, we will continue to be until we see some real relief on the sides of rates. This is a buyer's market. So I would really encourage a buyer to look at this strategy. Cindy, give us everybody your phone number too. If you're a
Let
buyer
me
and
give you
you're
my phone
thinking
number
about
too. And one other piece of information, she's right about this being a buyer's market. The homes are staying on the market longer. Why are
oh
they staying
yeah.
on the market longer? Because people are waiting. Buyers are
Mhm,
waiting because the rates have been up and down with this war in Iran. And so let's
mhm.
call it real quickly. The war every day, these rates go up and down. I get calls every day. And I'm going to give you my number because you can call me and I'll be straightforward with you and talking with you with Jessica as well. My number's area code 512-961-0171. Cindy Haven, loan advisor with Golden Bay Mortgage Group. Again, 512-961-0171. And Jessica, absolutely. There are factors that have impacted people holding back, waiting, and people
Mhm,
thought their home would sell immediately, even in some of the
mhm.
hot markets. As a matter of fact, that listing agent for Folsom reached out to me and said, it's not sold yet. I was kind of shocked. I thought over the weekend they might get pending offers. Apparently not.
No,
So,
things are really sitting for quite a while. Well, I forgot when you gave your number, like, you and Ron were
yeah,
in Texas for a while. I actually have a listing in Texas right now that the seller's offering a 4% interest rate and doing a seller finance. I do happen to see a lot of creative deals come through. I think very creatively and outside the box. I think you have that same ability, Cindy. So for somebody who's looking for a deal, if you're a buyer, request all of the things that you can request, a buy down, closing costs, all of the repairs. If you're not in the
absolutely.
market to pull your credit right now, look for creative financing such as a seller finance, a mortgage wraparound. These
Yeah,
things are out there. They are available. You do need to walk in with the cash. If you don't have the credit, you need to come in with cash to get that kind of a deal. But those deals are available. I have a 4% loan available in Texas right now. The payment's
and
18.52 a month. So you come in with the equity piece, which is like 60 grand. You come in with the cash for that, and then you take over the loan payment that would still stay in the seller's name at 18.52. So they're
absolutely. And there's a
absolutely
couple of
jamming.
other things too I was going to mention to you because recently we've had, so people can use gift funds. They may not know
Uh-huh.
that they can use gift funds from family and whatnot. So gift funds are available. Also, there's grants.
Mm,
Some of the things I look at would be what grant programs are available. And
mhm.
then also there's down payment assistance programs that I've worked with all of them because just in the last 6 months, we've had several people use that for some of the down payment and it can be layered. So you're talking about
Mhm.
layering it, right, Jessica?
Yeah.
Getting the seller to credit for X amount
Mhm.
for, 2-3%, depending on the loan, if it's FHA or
Mhm.
conventional. And then on top of that, we get these down payment funds or gift funds. And we can get you easily at that point into a home and you can start building your own equity and wealth.
No, you're totally right. When you bring up the down payment assistance, there's an origination tapped onto that, but the seller can pay for that. I can get 6% on an FHA loan. The seller can pay up to 6% on a VA or FHA. So if you chose to use down payment assistance and you really didn't have, more than a couple $1,000s, which again can be gift funds from your mom, your grandma, your uncle, whatever, you could get that money
Absolutely.
to come in and we could use that even for your origination fee. So thank you for the reminder on down payment assistance. It is an option even if you don't have the cash, but you have the credit. You need one or the other. You need cash or
Yeah.
credit. So pick one, find one, figure one of those out. You are in a prime time right now as a buyer to be able to come in with some of these strategies. And
Another point, though, that I know you would be aware of, I want to make sure they know. So, similar to those situations, had a client last year, if your credit's not, where you want it to be,
uh-huh.
if you want to make it happen, we can make that happen. So, I had a co-signer. You can refinance that co-signer off within 10 months. So, I mean,
Oh,
basically,
good
I had a
reminder.
brother-in-law co-sign so the couple could get into the home just
Mhm.
because that elevated their credit option, put them in a better situation, right? A better position
Yeah.
overall, and we make it happen. So
Yeah.
there's, like you said, creative ideas, creative solutions and structure and working together with a team like yourself and myself that know how to make it happen.
Yeah. No, I couldn't
Yeah.
emphasize that enough. Cindy, give out your number one more time for anybody who wants to chat or just strategize. You want to shoot her a text and go, hey, we have $3,500. I think our credit is here. What is the next step? Like, start planning. What's your phone number so somebody could reach out?
It's 512-961-0171. It is an Austin number, everyone, because we used to live in Austin. We had a company there, a real estate and insurance company, just so you know, because people will ask. 512-961-0171. And Jessica, thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. And I believe we
Absolutely.
answered some questions for everyone and hopefully stirred some interest so that you will call.
Yes, yes, as you should, as
Absolutely.
you should. So always a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much. Hope to talk with you soon and get
All
some
right.
buyers and
Thanks,
contracts.
Jessica. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.